So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Alan Curtis. Mr. Curtis is the owner and designer builder at Legendary Escapes out of Brighton, Michigan. His presentation is titled, Ready to Step Up Your Game? Taking Vinyl Liner Pools to New Heights with Hybrid Innovation.
Thank you. I think the best way to do this is kind of start with where I came from and where I'm going, and where I think the industry is going, but I want to show you what we're doing to innovate vinyl that I see as the moving forward. So kind of a hello, who I am, where I come from. I was a pool guy. I was a college kid, and my brother called me one day and he said, hey, I got you a job with a pool company. When are you going to be done for the semester? And I said, well, I'll be down next week. He said, great, you start Monday. That was my introduction to the pool industry. Had no idea what I was doing. Walked in, had no clue. Fell absolutely in love with it. Finished my college education, thought I'd keep going in my master's for some reason, dropped out and said, nope, I'm a pool guy from here on out. So I worked for a guy for a couple years, and I think it was about 6 or 7 years into it, he had some health challenges, and he needed to get out of the business. So lo and behold, one of the opportunities was he would split the company into two pieces. I would buy one location, his nephew would buy the other, or some combination of that. And what we did was, I bought one location. He had 2 stores at the time that did construction service and retail, and his nephew bought the other store. We were vinyl liner, real bare basic vinyl liner pool builders, and we would build one gunite pool a year, maybe 2. Our market, where we're just outside of, probably a little bit northwest of Detroit, was pretty dominantly vinyl liner at the time. It's a mix now of, there's quite a bit of fiberglass, quite a bit of gunite today, but at that time there was a lot of vinyl. And so we were building what everyone else was building. And when given the opportunity, my background was art. I wanted to do something really interesting with my hands. And he wanted to build really basic pools, which was fine. Now, we're talking 30 years ago. I've been at this for quite a while. And he wouldn't listen. He wanted to just do vinyl, or just do real basic, which was fine. When I got the opportunity then to buy the company from him, I had a decision to make. Do I do what we've always done because it works, or do we do something different? Well, I was green. I had no idea what I was doing. I ended up owning this company and had to do something. So we started building pretty basic vinyl liner pools. There's a picture of me when I was in 8th grade. I don't know why she had to put that in there, just I suppose to embarrass me a little bit, I suppose. But so we started building, and what we had been building, and when I took over, we were building basic vinyl liner pools, which was fine. Great market, tons of pools. We were building more than we could possibly imagine. There was a lot of work to be had. And from there, still pretty basic, but then we got into how could we do retaining walls and waterfalls, and how could we push the envelope, but the pool was still really basic. By the way, if you have questions, put your hand up at any time throughout this. We have a ton of really cool pictures to go through, the how-tos, kind of how I put this stuff together. But if you have questions, put your hand up and I'll make sure we get those answered for you. So in the process of building really basic vinyl liner pools, like I said, the company had always built of a gunite pool or 2 a year. Well, that gave me the opportunity to be creative. So the first couple years I was working really hard at trying to be creative in gunite, what I could do different. And here's just some of the early work of some of our gunite pools. I think Sandy at some point will get up and share. All this stuff is available for you to see if you can look at it later. There's plenty of places online. I think they can see the stuff. So we were building some kind of fun and different stuff, but nothing earth-shattering. And again, just a few more of the gunite projects that we did in the process of building majority vinyl liner pools. Well, what happened, this was our first attempt at being creative in a vinyl liner pool. We learned how to sculpt concrete. It's a beautiful picture. I'm really proud of this one. It makes me cringe every time I see it, but it was that first step of how could we be different? How could we do something, take one of those acrylic shells and do something cool with it, and all we could think of was blob concrete around it, make it look kind of cool. Well, it didn't look very cool, but we were trying to innovate. So this one, we raised it up a little bit. There's a kind of a bar behind it that if you look, you could see from the backside, the spa is at the same level as the countertop in the bar. And so it's sort of this interactive space. And as silly as this project is now that I look back at it, it was the time and the spot where I can recognize in my career that I said, I can do something different. I didn't know how yet, but I was realizing using space in pool building, how could we create these intimate and interesting spaces? And that's where it started. So then we tried it again, and we built another kind of blobbed up pile of rocks on top of and this is actually carved concrete on top of the pool edge, which was fine at the time. Everyone thought it was great. We thought we were doing okay. But what happened was, maybe some of you guys can relate to this or not, I don't know, but there was another guy in our industry, in our area, and he and I quoted a project. It was a Kafko pool, same shape, same size, same features, same everything, and he was $3,000 less than me. And the customer asked me, why you? Why should I pick you over this guy? And of course, we all come up with all these answers. Well, I've been at this longer, and I might get a bigger company, so I have more overhead, and all the same excuses. But there was really no valid reason that I could tell that guy why I was better at building that pool than the other guy. Now, I knew the other guy. I knew his family. As a matter of fact, he's the son of the guy who I bought my company from. So I'm intimately involved. I know who he is. And there's no reason I need to badmouth him. There's no reason I needed to say anything about him. But that was a second turning point for me, where I didn't get the job. He went for the $3,000 cheaper, which was fine. I had no problem with that. But it got me to thinking, how can I be different? Anyone want to be different in the industry, just in terms of being able to walk in and know that you have a clear advantage because you're just different? And that was a point for me where I said I can either operate based on price and try to beat this guy on price because I wasn't offering anything different. And at that point, I made a decision that I needed to be different. I didn't know what that meant. I knew that I tried that thing with the spa and the walk-up bar, and it was kind of cool figuring out space. And I knew I needed to do something, but I couldn't figure that out. I didn't know what it was. And then this happened, and that was the second point where I was being tapped on the head. It's time to be different. How can you do what you love in a new way? And that's kind of what came out of this. We started with, well, how can we put cool coping and stone and things on vinyl liner pools? How could we do all of that stuff? This was before manufacturers were making trays and things that you could put. This was before, the vinyl over stainless steps and stuff. We were trying to do that on our own. Well, we started with coping. Here's an example of a pool where I was trying to be innovative. Now, this was done many years ago. We since went back and did a liner job, and that's where I took this picture of. But I put brick around the pool, and I built, again, one of these wonderful waterfalls. And I was trying to be really unique and trying to be different, and I kept pushing that. And if you notice right there, the rock hangs down below the liner. The idea was, how can I push that? Gunite, you can put the rock right down in the water, and it looks so much cleaner than just putting everything on top. It just had a better finish. So I was trying that. Well, I realized when I went back 15 years later, my pitfall. It's not easy to put a liner back into that thing. Hence, this picture. Now, if you happen to notice, I am tied to the fence. That's the only way I could figure out how to stay there long enough to try to get underneath there to do something with that liner to try to put it back together. At the time, it was really cool and it was new because it was kind of easy to work in there. Not so easy later on. The other thing is, for me, when I took over, kind of stepping back for a minute, I decided that I was going to be a pool guy builder. Owner of the company, great, not interested. As much as I own the company, I'm a worker guy. I wanted to be in the field every day innovating. Even when we were building those basic pools, I was there every day. I run an excavator, we do concrete work, we pump concrete, we do all that stuff. And you'll see in a mix, I'm in all of those pictures. Those aren't staged. That was me hanging upside down that day trying to figure out how to put that liner back in. Because that little piece of concrete hanging down made no sense. So then we were pushing it a little bit. We were trying to do, like I said, brick coping, decorative patios and things, bluestone coping. Went back to our gunite days. A few of these are gunites. We were using a lot of bluestone coping to do that. So we threw a few of those in here just to show. But let's start doing it in vinyl. How could we make it look different? Started with that, kind of playing with spas, how to do some different with spas. But we still had the same mental challenge of, here we are, vinyl liner pool, really pretty color, white step. Of course, then the gray steps came out, the blue steps came out. That helped a little bit. So we started using those. I mean, again, this is an evolution and a process of where we went, and then you'll see when things changed, and that's what hybriding is all about, and I'll explain what hybriding is. But up to this point, we were using everything that the industry was providing and just trying to be different. Now, we figured out how to pour our own beam around the top of the pool to put stone on it so that it wouldn't fall off. If anyone here has ever tried to glue stone right to the top of a steel wall without supporting it, didn't take very long before the stone's popping all over the place because there's flex. Well, we figured how to pour a concrete collar around it and reinforce it enough to be able to put stones so the stone would stay. And again, taking our waterfalls. The next step for me in this process was how can I, again, be different with the waterfalls so that they mirror to match something. In this particular case, we used all of the same material in the waterfall that they used on the house, to try to mirror that. And that just, the equipment hides behind it. That wasn't meant as a pump house. It was just meant for the equipment to go behind. And again, we lighted it and did some pretty cool things with it. You stood up. Any questions?
I did. No, this is
Go for it.
about the time I joined the company, and I'll add a little bit of flavor from this point.
So a quick history about Sandy is she and I are now partners in the company. She came at a critical point for me. I was burned out and ready to be done. There was nothing I wanted to do in the industry anymore because I felt like I was trying this stuff and I was pushing a boulder uphill. Manufacturers always thought my liners were crazy and they didn't want me to bend. They didn't want to bend the panels the way I wanted them to, and there was just this pushback on everything. And she sort of got in the mix of that. And she loves the business side of things, which was perfect for me because I love being in the field. So she came on board, we ended up working a deal, and she became a partner.
This might also be a good point. While innovating and you're coming up with all these creative solutions, obviously you need the backyards to create the creative solutions in. So part of what helped us innovate was developing our story. Because when Al went out to a customer to say, well, I have this idea, I think we could do this. Of course, he hadn't built one yet, so he had to somehow create in their mind a story that this could work. And most of the time, the customers probably had no idea what he was talking about. They just learned to like him, and they said, okay, do whatever you like. So you might want to fill in a little bit of that because it becomes pivotal in the shift, as we could call it.
There was a lot of that happened at the time. I would just have this idea, and they were small ones mostly, and people would go, have you ever done it? I'd go, well, no, but I think I can figure it out. And somehow I convinced them enough to let me try it. I'd always said, I'll try it. If something goes wrong, I'll fix it, I promise. The one thing I didn't do, and a lot of guys do, and gals probably do, is if they haven't done it before, they give it away for really cheap so they can try it. The problem is that if it doesn't work, you're stuck with fixing it and there's no money. So what I would recommend is be strong enough to believe that you can do it and then try it. And if you try it and it doesn't work, you still have enough money to go back and fix it or change it or do something else. I see guys do this all the time. I haven't done one of these, so I'm going to give it away at cost. At cost means loss. There's no doubt about it. The first time you do anything, you're going to have to fix stuff. It's going to be extra labor. It's going to be breaking out, tearing out, grinding out, doing something to fix it. To me, I would always say, what's it really going to cost me to do? Pad it a little bit and then go from there, even on the new stuff. And that's always worked for me. If you don't learn anything else from me, I would hope you learn that, or someone is finally saying, charge for it. You have to charge for it. And for me, I went into it not knowing what I could do. As a matter of fact, quick story, and it might show up in here, but I had a customer say, you know what we'd really like along with our pool is a fireplace. I went, I can do that. I had no idea how to build a fireplace, no idea. The neat thing was, at that time, YouTube had just started. And guess what I found on YouTube? How to build a fireplace. So I watched every video about how to build a fireplace and said, I could do that. Bid accordingly, figured it out, knew what my cost, having a general idea what my costs were going to be. And next thing you know, I built a fireplace in the backyard, and then I end up building another fireplace in the backyard, and then another. It's kind of weird how that happens. Once you have the skill set, people want more of it. But I didn't know. And the beauty today is there's so much available online. If you're not sure how to do something, YouTube it. Somebody's talked about it. And I know this stuff that I'm showing you, we videotaped all of it and showed it. You can spend a little time on YouTube. We have like 2,000 videos on YouTube. that shows all this stuff, the philosophy, the way, and as well as how we do all of this stuff.
One more little bit of background that I think might be helpful is if anybody's sitting in the audience saying, this is great, I don't know if my clients or my area would support that. We're in the Metro Detroit market in Michigan. We have the same pool season as here in Canada. And the clients that we tend to work for, remember this when we get into some of the really fancy pictures, are often dual income, sometimes single income, normal, ordinary people, houses that we work in. It's not exclusive neighborhoods, it's dirt roads and country settings. It's people that have learned to love the stories that we're telling through our pictures and our videos and decide that that's something that they want in their yard. So this is not something that is unattainable for any pool company to build or for any of the customers.
I think if your business is purely about volume and purely about scaling up, you might as well either take a nap, number one, while you're here, or take a stretch, or listen if you want. But this is scalable in a certain way. But if your goal is to be a huge builder, to be the biggest one in your market, this isn't going to help you get there. I can promise you that. But if you want to stand out as remarkable, unique, different, sought after, desired, wanted to the point where people will wait for you because they want what you have because there's no one else in your market that has it, that's a good reason to be here. Now you can even take pieces of what we're going to show you and add those to your repertoire, your abilities, because it just, again, it sets you apart. So this isn't something that I would want to represent. And here's a way of making your business 1,000 times bigger. But I can promise you make your business 1,000 times more profitable. Because as you create a unique market for yourself, you can kind of charge what you want. If someone says, I don't care, please build for me, what does that say to you?
Raise your price.
Cha-ching, 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 right? If there's this huge, huge demand and a teeny tiny supply, what would economics say? Price goes way up. Yeah, and now we're talking go up as high as you feel comfortable going up, and once you get there, you realize I can get more comfortable going higher again. And it's not about taking advantage. It's not about hurting a customer or taking advantage of a customer. It's about providing something that they want. Think about what we do. What does it cost? What are the material costs and the labor costs? And what are they buying? Are they buying that? Or are they buying the enjoyment they get from it? Are they really buying the water that's in the pool and the concrete and the liner and the steel and the... No, they're buying what my kids are doing, how much fun I can have. The kids can be here and the neighborhood will be here. They're buying all those emotional things. Put a price on your emotions right now. Can you? It's what it's worth to you. So I can look at my project costing one thing and the guy that does something else costing that. Which one's more valuable? Depends on if you value it. Depends on if your customer values it. So as we realized that, we could raise our prices because number one, we're unique, and number two, there was a greater demand for it. Why give it away? Because if you don't have to give it away, then it gives you more money to innovate and to change. And for me, I never got into this for money. I mean, the pool business is a great place to make money. It's a hard way to make money too. And staying in the field the whole time is a hard thing physically, but there's an enjoyment out of it for me that is amazing. And being able to raise my prices considerably higher than everybody else allowed me to have money to do more of what I love, which is give more, innovate more, be more creative, do more things like that. So just another example, this was sort of some of on the journey. Started doing some of the raised acrylic spas, a little nicer looking than the original one. Some waterfalls and things, but you see all this, still the same classic pieces of vinyl. The liner tile, True Track, the tracking. Again, early on we were doing, and this goes quite a ways back, but we were doing like the love seats and the sun shelves, and those we were pouring all out of concrete. This was before the companies would bend them and make them for us. At that time we were making those by hand. But then obviously steps got turned gray, which was really cool because it helps us hide that obvious white spot. Again, here's one where we did a curved wall, but we did a straight love seat. Couldn't get someone to bend it for us, so we just did it straight out of panels, screwed and bolted the panels in and filled it with concrete, and then lined that over. You can see it in the lower picture here. There's the seat right there. But that was us just figuring out how to do it. because no one else would do it for us at the time.
So how did you order that seat from Capco? Who designed this deal for us? That's a trick question.
Yeah.
I think I had some extra steel panels lying around and just put them there and cut them, made it fit, and it did.
Yeah, I was never afraid of taking any panel they sent me and cutting it. Cut it and bend it. And then the idea was once you cut it and bend it, create whatever shape you want. And they eventually, because CAFCO had some people in the Detroit area and one of their primary designers is still there, that if I ever get in a situation, I can get directly with him. I've actually gone to his office a couple times on some of the crazy ones over the years. But liners have gotten to the point where it's pretty easy. If you just describe what you want, they can do it. In those early days, it was a little tougher. Like me trying to describe, well, I took these steel panels and I bolted them, I put straight and I bolted them to the wall, and like, what? I don't understand it. Because at that time, they didn't understand it. Now this stuff is all pretty easy. Again, a little more geometric, trying to do some of the love seats and things like that. Kiddie pools, which again, you still see. At that time, it was important to me to build it, not all the details. Today, what would drive me crazy would be all these face mount coping pieces and all of that. I didn't see it at the time because it was, to me, innovation, but now I look at it and it kind of drives me crazy because I know how not to do that. So there's another example. Again, just some of that stuff. Vinyl steps. This was a pool that we had to pour steps. There's no such thing as steel steps. They're not very easily found. So we poured the steps, lined them, covered them. Just pools, sun ledges, all that stuff. I want to get through all this stuff. This is more background, and let's talk about the real stuff coming up. This was one where we raised a spa, did a kind of a cool area, poured the steps. So again, at that time, trying to get anyone to build me panels and bend me panels and stuff was not the easiest thing. I just kind of figured out how to do it. But the net result was kind of cool. Same thing, sun shelves. Poured concrete sun shelves. Again, as we know, what the issue with that is, if you have a vinyl covered sun shelf, is chance of it tearing. What kind of seats are they going to put on it? And people don't know, and they just start putting stuff on there. But that was okay. It worked. Certainly worked. Just another example of one of those. We got into some more retaining walls, more of a elevation work, and then theming. That was probably another big step for us in terms of how we could really innovate, was how could we theme things? How could we ask the customer to provide us with, where have you been in the world? What do you like? What do you feel? What kind of things make you feel good? And then build according to that. Well, this guy had said he kind of likes Castle Old World European, and here's me trying to figure Castle Old World European with the vinyl liner pool. So again, that was an attempt. What we did was we said, how can we take space, create cool things? In this one, the next picture I'll show you is the back of the waterfall. Oh, that's front. Back of the waterfall is, how can we now use the waterfall itself as something interesting, something visual? And that's the courtyard that's behind it. So it was taking what was already there and just adding to it. That whole middle section there is sort of like a castle turret. And we put stained glass windows in them and lit it from the backside, so it was really cool at night. And that was our attempt to try to create this castle theme, this old world European theme. That particular space right there still happens to be one of my most favorite spots that we've ever built. There's just something about it. And then it was, how could we, again, this is ancillary to the pool itself, but how could we make walls and retaining walls and things interesting? Because a lot of guys I know build just a pool, and you may have a landscaper that does all of that stuff. We decided we wanted to do all of it. Just because, number one, we're there. Let's try to be creative. Let's do something different. We had this cool group of people that just was excited about being creative. And so we'd start doing crazy walls and things.
The other thing that builders might do when encountering a yard like that is decide to put retaining walls in so that you can make a flat spot, and you can put the pool there on the very flat spot. But what Al's done is learned how to use the elevations as well to make it more visually interesting from many different vantage points around the pool.
And moving forward, you'll see that this one has a swim-up bar. This was one of our early swim-up bars. That's a different wall. I guess not in the. Hey, that's the very first fireplace I built. I made a mistake on that one that I realized later. I mean, the chamber, all that was great. It looks really nice. The chimney wasn't tall enough. It wouldn't vent properly. But again, you learn. What they didn't tell me on those YouTube videos was make sure that your venting is 15 feet above or whatever the number was, and I had only gone 12 feet up. And every once in a while you would get a little bit of smoke out of the front of the furnace, out of the front of the fireplace. And the reason being was it wasn't vented quite as tall. But YouTube didn't teach me that. You could learn that now on YouTube, I guarantee it. But swim up bars, so we started using common walls. This was just a common wall that we stepped down to create a bar area. And again, we have the same frost issues, so it's how do we deal with it structurally to make sure this is going to last. We had to kind of think through all of that, pre-pour footing, set the pool walls on it, and then build up from there. And that's the kind of stuff that we started doing to use elevation. Everyone else in our industry wanted to run from the yards that were on steep, weird hills. I loved it. I thought, wow, upper patio, middle patio, lower patio. You know, these could all be negative edge pools as well. I choose not to build most negative edge pools because there's other reasons that I really like doing these elevations. Any one of these pools that we show you could probably have been a negative edge as well. This is one with the crazy wall. Has a, has a bar area there. And again, we were thinking, how could we, this was early days of using elevation. Now, this is a pool, you had mentioned the story. Why don't you share the story about, this was found online, and we were offered an award.
Oh, yeah. Several years ago, we were contacted because we learned how to tell a story and put our photographs online. There's often pool builder contests that you can submit yourself for and get awards. We have not in recent times really submit any work, so this was found by Pool and Spa News, who wanted to
Pool and Spa News, right.
give a Master Pool Builder of the Year award for it. And at the time that they contacted us, this pool was 5 or 6 years old. So when I took the call, I knew what the answer would be, but I said, that's great, thank you for asking us. Let me talk it over with Al, the pool guy, and I'll call you back. So I called Al, and the conversation went something like this. Guess what? You were selected for a Pool Builder Award. Al said, which pool? I told him which one, and he said, yeah, we probably want to say no to that. So we did. So I called her back, said thank you. We're honored. This is work that is older, and we've changed since then, and it's not our best, so we politely declined. So she did, at that point, ask if there was any project.
Well, let's explain why.
Wanted to show.
Yes, so it was kind of cool that, you know, the magazine calls and says we select you for a Masters of Design award, and it would be really great. But that was work that I had done way before, and we haven't even gotten to the stuff we're doing now. And I didn't want to be known for what I'd been doing before. I wanted to be known for what we were doing in that current period of time. So it was hard for me to say, oh yeah, the award's great, the recognition is great, but if it's not who and what I am anymore, why did I want it? And I know that was a weird conversation for you to have with her. Well, then she said, all right, you pick the pool, or give us half a dozen pools, we'll review them. If we still like you enough, we'll give you the award. And so that's what they ended up doing. They selected.
We'll show it at some point later.
We'll show it. So here's where hybrid started. I had a customer, high profile in our area customer, come to me, and she has to recruit young college girls from all over the country to come to Michigan. And she heard about me and that I loved being creative, and I guess she heard that I was doing pretty good at it. I'm not sure if I was at that time. But she said, I love a vinyl liner pool. I want something vinyl. But I was at this resort somewhere, and they had this coolest thing. It was like a cool seat with a floating table in the middle. And she goes, I just have to have one of those in my pool. I went, okay, vinyl liner pool. Traditionally, we build it with, you might have the cloverleaf step on there, you might, whatever, all the different step options are. I've kind of lost track of those nowadays. And I tried to figure out how I could use one of those and try to put a step in it. I mean, put this floating table in it. And I couldn't come up with anything, so I didn't know what to tell her. And so I said, all right, give me a little bit of time. Let me try to figure out what this is. She was almost insistent that I build a pool for her because we had built a pool for someone she knew, and they loved it, loved, raved about us. And I said, all right, well, let me see what I can do. And I was just kind of daydreaming one day, and I said, well, what if I built a vinyl liner pool, but I left some spaces where the step would be, where the sun shelf would be, what if I just left those spaces out, put the steel in, and then tied a shell and got the gunite guy to come in and shoot those for me. How would I put it together? What would that look like? What would that be? And so I went to a gunite guy. Fortunately, I had a relationship with a gunite guy in our area because, like I said, I built 1 or 2 pools every few years for a long time, so who knew who I was? And I said, Steve, I have this kind of crazy, goofy idea. I don't know if it's going to work, but here's what I want you to do. I'm going to build this pool, and then I'm going to tie all this steel for you. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was going to tie all this steel for you, and you just come in and shoot for me. You just place it. And he goes, okay. And he goes, I'll tell you what, I'll just charge you by the yard and the amount of time I'm there. Perfect. So I'm trying to estimate. I have no idea exactly, but I get a rough idea what it's going to cost. And that was the beginning of something that has radically changed what we do. So Steve came in, and I'll go to the next picture first and come back to this one. We put the steel structure in, poured the footings. We had, I mean, again, it wasn't a simple one. We had to start with a hard one. We had a whole sun shelf, so we figured out how to drop the panels around, tied the steel. They came in and shot the steps for us and shot the sun shelf. At the same time, we figured because we already knew what we were doing with coping edges to put coping in, we shot the beam all in at the same time, and that's Karen, my sister-in-law, getting that all set. So here's kind of look like you can see the sun shelf right here. You'll see that from the other direction. Set of steps there, and then down at this end, show you a picture of that. Somewhere along the way here. Well, this is just sort of all the pieces, and now you can see it's probably super not easy to see, but here's kind of where all this concrete starts coming together with steel. And there was the beginning of our seat with the floating table in it. So we had left this opening up, realized how much space we needed. We tied and shot a seat. There it is again. There it is again with me, with my makeshift, how are we going to get a table to float in there? And we figured it out using a piece of stainless steel and a tube down into the ground. We've gotten better at that over the years. But now you can see the beginning here of the sun shelf and a waterfall. So your steel's underneath. And this was a little unique project too because the deep end is all right in here. It's shallow at both ends and all tapers to this wall on this side, so it got a little bit goofy. So there's, as we're putting bluestone on, starting to build up this waterfall structure. There's a seat, this is the seat that you saw, the very first picture of him shooting it. Here's as we went. And now here's where the magic started to happen, is how could we figure out to blend a gunite pool and a vinyl liner pool. This was a fall project. We didn't finish till spring, so we put water in it in the fall. You'll see a couple dirty pool pictures here, but they get better. Kind of washed out. Here it's full of water, waterfall running. Again, what we were trying to do is this was a backyard. They had no space to store anything. So my idea was, since the elevation has to come up to do this anyway, and there's going to be a retaining wall on the backside, let's create this waterfall that then gives us space to build a building behind it. And we created some storage space back there. And in addition, we put a slide in it. Concrete slide with tile. Again, here's some of the things that I notice now that wouldn't be noticed at first is, so here's a vinyl liner, really cool. We find they're using gray coping, snap lock coping on there, but of course our liners have a white bead at the top. There's that waterfall looking, that's the waterfall looking down at the sun shelf from the top. Now there's no issue with people putting any chair they want on it, other than a metal chair that might rust, which is going to cause water chemistry problems, but we had no issues. This is from the backside looking that way. We retained all the way across the back, just with the center block wall, because it was non-functional. It was functional, but it didn't need to look like anything special. And there's the table. So yes.
When was this? What year was this roughly?
Probably 8 or 9 years ago, something like that.
About 07, 08.
Yeah, we have a picture. We ended up renovating this pool, which is interesting. We did a whole nother liner because we added true tile to it. and it really steps up. And that's kind of our evolution. So you'll see this pool again later on as we go. Now, one of the things that we added too is she said, well, I really wanted water coming out of the table. Oh, great time to tell me. But so what I had to do is I had to go underneath and drill through the top and figure out how to bring water. I don't think we have any pictures of that, but we now have water splashing out of the top of that as well. And it's removable. So you can take it out. It's poured out of concrete. Just figured out how to make a concrete table, sealed it, and we take it out every winter. There it is again. Now you can see the little spout in the top. And if you look closely underneath, you can see our plumbing. And there's the pool complete. What that did was that really set us apart. We're now vinyl liner pool builders like no other. We can do just about anything when it comes to vinyl. And that was sort of that sort of moment for us. So just a quick few more on that first one.
So jumping in on this too, innovation sometimes comes out of those times in life when you're really needing to find inspiration again. This pool was built on the heels of Al saying, I don't want to be a pool guy anymore. He had, for whatever reason, gotten burnt out of the volume. It was high volume prior to this point, and of perhaps not
the grind
fulfillment in what he was doing. So the year before this pool was built was when he really kind of said, I might want to do something else in the future. And this customer had to have him build the pool, and because he said yes, what you don't know in these pictures is the team that we had working with us also scaled back. And now that we have time-lapse cameras, it's awesome. If we had had it back then, which the technology was a bear to try to put together, you would have seen Al on the job every day with the wheelbarrows of concrete. Pretty much he and one guy and his sister-in-law Karen built this pool on their backs.
Yeah, it was just one of those times, and again, there's another pivotal moment in my life where I fell in love with the pool business the minute I was in. It's like chlorine just oozed right into me the day I started, and I could never get away from it. As much as I tried to clean it off, it wouldn't go away. And at that time, again, the volume, with the grind of the volume in the seasonal business, I'm preaching to the choir, I know. It's a seasonal business, and all those things were happening, and I just didn't have the whatever it was going to take, I didn't think. And I was just flat out burned out, and I was done. And there was a point where I gave everything away. Dump trucks, skid steer, all that, I gave it away. I didn't even ask anyone for money. I said, here, you want all my stamping equipment? Here, you can have it. Oh, I see you need a mixer. Here, you want a mixer? Oh, dump truck? Here, have a dump truck. I just was done. I just felt like I was done. And then someone calls and says, could you build me a pool? You have to do it for me. And I go, okay. Rent the dump truck, rent an excavator, rent everything, build a pool, and want to quit again. And it was about that time where she came to me and she said, I got to have this pool. You got to build it for me. And there was nothing on the market that I could find anywhere that would get us to that end. That's why I tried it. I was smart enough to try it, but scared enough to know that it wasn't going to be an easy thing. And that's why 80% of that particular pool was me. The 20% was 3 of us, 80% of it was me. Because I was at a point where I wanted to be done, but I wanted to learn. If I was going to do it, I was going to do it myself. And so we started, I went through mentally the process over and over and over. What would this look like? When I get the gunite guy there, what's he going to do? How's he going to do it? How am I going to match the steel to the concrete? Okay, I got the concrete, then I got a pebble over that. How do I do that? I don't know, I'll figure it out. But I kind of mentally went through all of it. And amazingly enough, it worked. And it certainly changed everything about who we are as a company and what we do, and my passion toward it. As much as I would have loved, I'd say I loved the pool business early on, I love the pool business now 1,000 times more, and I'm 25 years older. It's not so easy to do it anymore, but I love to do it, and I won't stop until I'm done, I think. But the big thing that this did was, now we're different. We started hearing this buzz. People would say, so we saw these hybrid pools. And that word just sort of stuck. I know there's other different types of hybrid pools, and people build all kinds of different hybrid things. It was just a term that we used for this vinyl gunite combination thing. And it kind of stuck, and people started asking that question. What about these hybrid pools? So then our process became every pool is hybrid. How can we do, just some simple drawings, how could we do sun shelves, integrated seats and spas and all that stuff? And you'll see this is that. This whole next section is all kind of the pictures of how it's put together. I know that when I'm looking into one of the pool magazines years ago, I always wanted to see the how-tos. Finished product is fine, but you can see those everywhere. That's all that people show. I thought it was more important to you to show kind of the dirt and grime of what it is. Obviously, traditional vinyl, we're going to get to that. That's True Tile by Latham. We'll touch on that. That really helped change what we do as well. But this sun shelf, it was all shot out of concrete. So we stopped the walls at both ends and shot the whole thing. You'll see in some of them, I may not point it out, but a lot of times the steel continues across. We just drop the steel down and then put the concrete shelf on top of it. But then this probably should have come later, but this also shows you how you start combining. True Tile helps make a ceramic surround the whole way. That first hybrid pool we did, the biggest challenge that I had with it mentally was, how do I take the gunite part and the vinyl part and make them look okay together? Because the vinyl has a pattern that is a decent pattern, but it doesn't look like real tile as much as we try to convince ourselves and our customers it does. It doesn't. And what can I put next to it? How can I marry the tile together? And if we went back to that pool, you'd see at every transition point was a boulder. Something to sort of distract the customer so that they wouldn't see that we had ceramic tile over here that was completely different than the vinyl pattern. True Tile helped us with that. I'll touch on that. The other thing that True Tile in particular, that I guess we're going to go to True Tile now, is it allowed me to take natural stone and bring it right down into the water. So I no longer had to try to figure out how to tie myself to a waterfall and hang upside down and try to tuck a liner into place. True Tile really helped that. But you can see kind of the process, and here's, if you follow, here's all of our stripping, done just like a normal vinyl liner pool. I mean, really, you're just doing a step just like you would in vinyl, but it's in concrete. And this particular, what we did for the first several evolutions of this was different pebble finishes. Now, we could not hire a pebble guy or a marshite guy to come in and do that little bit of work. They wouldn't even look at it. What we had to do was say, we're smart enough, we do concrete enough, let's figure out how to do the process. And that's what we did, is we started playing with our own mixes. Figure, this can't be impossible, let's figure out how to do it. And the net result was it allowed us to play with colors, allowed us to play with all the different products on the market, put glass in it if we wanted, all the things that have come up, we've sort of learned to do. So you'll see the crew, you'll see we usually run 2 crews a year, and you'll see some pictures of them. It's not your typical crew that do all this kind of work. So one of the things that happens here is now you have a transition point from concrete, the liner comes up and then you're transitioning into concrete. Those screws. What we did was, how do you fasten a concrete? As long as you can seal the concrete, you just got to fasten to it. So we use nylon inserts, and we'll show pictures of that. Just get a good grade nylon fixture insert and stain the screws. And in that particular case, we just caulk that joint. There's that pool finished. And again, you can see underneath the sun shelf, takes a few screws. If you stain the screws, buy them in bulk, it's not too expensive, but just follow it all along. And amazingly enough, worked out pretty well.
One other thing to touch on in there is the in-floor. I don't know how popular that is up here yet.
Well, yeah, another thing, she mentioned the in-floor system. I don't know, any of you guys or girls doing in-floor? I was always scared of it just because it's more lines underneath that have to be winterized and blown out. And we kind of took that one on the head on and said, how could we make this better? And you know, we can share with you later, but what we did was, if anyone knows anything about in-floor, you have 6 pipes that come up that each feed to all of the different zones underneath. And what we did is we figured out how to bring them up together, valve each one of them like it was a main drain, and then bring them together into the head. And I don't know why someone hadn't thought of that. We went to the manufacturers and said, this is why we're not doing it into the north. You know, you ask us to take this goofy plug and try to blow out and then plug this thing in, and it just doesn't work very well. Well, Blue Square Manufacturing out of Phoenix, Arizona finally said, you're right. And they came up with an L pipe that goes like this. It's a shaped pipe that comes out of that thing and goes out and gives you room to put valves. And now you just winterize it like a main drain. And the beauty is, dollars-wise, you can make a pretty good amount of money doing in-floor systems, especially when you're unique in the market. And now it's easy to winterize. We stayed away from them before because there was no easy way to winterize them and guarantee that they weren't going to leak. But with this, that's really made a big difference.
And just one other side note too, Al typically sells them as efficiency systems versus just a cleaning benefit, because you're heating the water from the bottom, not just that top layer, which I'm sure you have the same climate.
Well, that's a good point, and it's about the story that you tell. Again, how could we be different? And the different to me was the side benefit is cleaning the pool. We know them as in-floor cleaners. I call them efficiency systems. I said, think about it. We add the water from the bottom. It comes up, and I use this story all the time. Can you imagine trying to boil a pot of water, putting it on the stove, and then using your hairdryer to heat it? That's how we heat pools. We heat them at the top. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't it make more sense if we just put the hot water at the bottom, and then you add the chemicals at the bottom? There's no thermal planes. There's no warm or cold anymore. It's all consistent heat. Oh, and by the way, the side benefit is it cleans your pool. And that's it's amazing once you help people understand the value. It goes way beyond it being a floor cleaner. This is an example, again, I'll get to the True Tile, where we did a natural stone waterfall, and we put the stone, we just notched out the stone, put it right down into the water. Another huge benefit when you have concrete sun shelves, no worry about the dogs playing. And that's something you hear all the time. I know I have a vinyl liner pool at my home, and the dog's always been in there. Never been a problem for me. I'm not real worried about it anyway, because if the liner goes, I'll replace it. But some customers have that concern. But you can set someone at ease by saying, well, look, here's examples. If there's a concrete sun shelf, we don't have that issue anymore. So there's that pool completed.
Sorry, Alan, what was the name of that company that did that L-shaped fitting?
It's called Blue Square Manufacturing. Yep. They're out of Phoenix, Arizona. Or Scottsdale, or Phoenix, I think. Anyway, they're there. Blue Square, you can find them online. Mm-hmm. So then the debate came for me as we got pushing into this was how to build a structure. And in most cases, 42-inch galvanized steel wall, perfectly fine. We've run into a couple situations now where it made more sense for us to figure out how to build the walls differently. So this was a project. I did a model because I couldn't get it quite right in my head. The customer had said to me, well, we were just in Hawaii. Ugh. I'm in Michigan. It's the middle of winter, and they were just in Hawaii. I'm going to have to somehow come up with something cool for them. And they said, yeah, this pool, you swim down these things, and you go down these, and then you get in the bottom. There's an elevator in the middle, brings you all the way back to the top, and then there's these slides that go down to all these pools. Well, again, that's not exactly what we can do in a residential situation. So instead, I just raised the pool up. Out of the back of the house, it dropped like 4 or 5 feet. And I just said, well, let's make the pool the same level as the backyard. That'll give us some elevation to drop and put a lower pool in as well, to give this illusion of slide from the top to the bottom, come back to the top. So that's what we did, and we'll show you. This is the next project is, did a swim up bar, steps up to a slide goes down to a bottom pool, come back up the steps to come up to the top. And this one, because of our elevation, we decided, let's shoot the walls out of concrete. We footed all the way around the shape of the pool, and then we use concrete to shoot the walls. So you'll see some ugly pictures as the process goes through here, but it gives you an idea of what happens. There's our bar. Here's our sun shelf right here, the swim up bar. Seats, had to innovate. Well, how could I put seats, removable seats, into a vinyl liner pool? So it created these posts with I had them fabricated out of stainless steel, where they had a plate with 4 screws, and he built this thing underneath that got mounted about 12 to 16 inches below, cemented those in, and built caps for them. That worked out really well. It's kind of a cool design. But now we're talking about elevation. What do we do? So we have an upper pool, we have a lower pool. The slide starts at the top of the little grotto there, down to the bottom pool. And now you see what vinyl. There's your True Track. There's your strip. And then this one was True Tile. Now let's get into True Tile a little bit. It makes sense. Anyone here ever used Latham's True Tile? Okay, you're probably lucky. They won't sell it to anybody anymore unless you get certified and they don't provide certification. Kind of weird, but
We're trying to work on that.
we're working on that. Yep. So here's what happened was we're building these really cool pools that we think we're on the edge of something great, but we can't figure out how to make it all look right at the top and all those details. The customer probably didn't care, didn't know the difference. We did. How can we make it better? And of course, I had heard about this True Tile stuff for many years, but when we first started using it, it was still fairly readily available, and that was when Latham was buying out Cafco, and I think it was a Cafco product originally. I don't remember, but what it allowed us to do was put ceramic around the entire pool, and then you attach the liner bead below water level. And it's kind of a scary thought at first, like, oh, it's going to leak, of course. It's pretty good. And it's only this far underwater, number one, which really helps. If it was down here, it might be a little bit more of an issue, but it's only a little bit under the water. But what it did was it allowed us now to ceramic the entire thing. So as you fade off the wall of the pool into the sun shelf, you still had ceramic tile. Or when you faded up to the spa, you still had tile. Or when you'll see some of the stuff coming up.
Right here, this piece of tile is above both.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so and this is a transition point right here where we're going, this is our strip that we're going to strip our step in, and the tile continues right around the length of the pool, and the liner terminates right there. So I think the next picture shows that.
No.
Kind of. Again, issues to me where now we have white. Fortunately, they came up with gray, so that really helps. But that now allowed us to make a pool that looked really interesting. There's the seats. There's the swim-up bar. There's the pool complete. Picture's a little bit faded out, but you can see in the picture here, swim-up bar, seats at the bar. You climb up to the top, slide all the way to the bottom, then you have to come back up and do it again. But it gave them that illusion of down and up and down and up. Plus, the other part of this is the pool. This is basically a negative edge pool because the water spills from the upper pool down to the lower pool. Now we masked it with stone just to create more of a up north kind of feel, more rugged feel. But we had all the same issues, if anyone's done negative edges, of water in transition. What happens when there's more water up here and it wants to drain down to that level, where does it go? So we had to treat this like a negative edge pool without the detail of it looking like a vanishing edge.
Back to that story about Pool and Spa using the Master Design Award, this pool was going into its kind of first full season with landscaping and summer coming back at the time when they gave that award. So this was
the one that was
the
selected.
main one that we pointed to in our submission. So this is the one that they chose back in 2013. And we were marketing to our clients at that time as hybrid pools, the vinyl gunite combination. Of course, that's not a category in Pool and Spa News, so it's under the vinyl classification.
And really it is. It's a vinyl liner pool. No gunite guy would claim this as a gunite pool, but most guys would claim this as a vinyl pool. So it's vinyl, we just hybrided, we've added some things, yes?
Just out of curiosity, if your whole shell was concrete, why did you choose to go to liner? Just, was it like a cost thing, or was it just because it made more sense?
It was not at all a cost thing. No, I would lead everyone toward vinyl no matter what the situation is, up until about a year ago. We'll talk about that. Go ahead.
Backup story too. Customers that have been in both types of pools, gunite pool and vinyl liner pool, can typically know the difference. And some people want gunite at all costs, but other people, when we talk about pool toe and we talk about the difference between vinyl and gunite, and if kids play for a long time in a gunite pool, they can start bleeding, and that's called pool toe. And there's a lot of people that don't like it. And this homeowner, Amanda, will actually talk about how much her kids play in the pool, and she loves, loves, loves it, except for those gunite areas that are just a little bit too rough. So they have to be really careful on those. But we do have a better solution for that now. But the customer in that case was very, very, very happy to be able to get vinyl.
They also said, we did an exit interview with them. We brought in a couple film guys and sat them down to talk about the process and what they liked and didn't like and all of that. And Charlie was the guy's name, and he said, I really like that there's vinyl where their vinyl needs to be, and there's concrete where there's concrete needs to be. To him, it made a lot of sense that playing in this pool was really nice to not have to worry about their toes like they would in a normal gunite pool. So that might answer the question in one way. I just prefer vinyl because of its ease of use, ease of maintenance, all the other things that we do say. And we'll get back a little bit more to that as we go.
timeline on this project? How long would a project like this take to build?
We usually target out 8 to 12 weeks. Again, we're a little bit different. We do most of it in-house. We have very little subcontractor. It's all us, so it helps on the timeline. If we need to crunch and go faster, we would, because we're not relying. If you're relying on contractors and lining them up, it certainly might spread it out a ways. But some of the really complicated stuff we do is up to about 12 weeks, but typically not much more than that. A couple more pictures of that pool. See the little spillway? But what we had to think about was, when this is full of water and you get an inch of rain, you get an additional inch of rain over 700 square feet trying to land down into a little pool that's only, 80 square feet, something like that. So we had to kind of plan for overflow, what was going to happen, much like you would in any negative edge pool. So beyond that was the first time we tried a grotto. It was just like a little cave with a few little seats, which was cool. It was kind of a start of something. But then it was like, how can we push this farther? What could we do? So here's another one of the goofy models that I built for a customer. Here's the process. Now this pool was going to have, again, all kinds of features on it. But there's the steel opening at this end. You can see our initial concrete poured for the sun shelf. At the far end, there's going to be a grotto and some steps. Shot the raw concrete, formed over the top of it, pumped and filled concrete in there.
So this one too, worth mentioning, that last pool, the grotto that you saw, fit
Two people.
2.5 people comfortably. Very, very exciting at the time. This customer also wanted a grotto, expected something similar in size. And as it turns out, because Al was having so much fun with this one, you can have a party with about a dozen people inside of this grotto.
What it did was it created a whole other place that I could play with people a little bit, to get them to think in different ways, to experience different things. My idea, as I've grown as a person, is to how to put so many interesting and detailed things in there that you never see them all at one time. And 3 years later, a friend goes, hey, where did that thing come from? I never saw that. Did they just put that in? Oh no, it's been there since day one. And I want that to be the experience that continues. So we started pushing. And one of the pushings was, how could we make a full cave? How could it be an immersion, a full experience inside? And that's what this one turned out to be. So there's me standing at the entrance of the cave. Me inside the cave. Now, again, picture that full of water. There's 2.5 feet of water in there. This was the top. We played with how could we make it more interactive. So we used some reclaimed, this was from a ship, a porthole. We did a few of those so that the kids could open up and they could reach in and out and kind of interact with people. Liner day. Now, as complicated as all that seems, a fairly simple, put some screws in and put it together. Because we thought through the process, it was pretty easy to put together. And there it is done.
And Latham is making these liners for you that fit?
Absolutely.
Tony, he'll probably be loving the fact that I give you his name. Tony Masajewski is our liner.
He's our guy. He doesn't even design them anymore. He just, when they come across his table, he double checks them.
And he knows what to do to make them look like this.
And again, what it took for me was just building a few relationships. We invited the CAFCO guys out to our pools to see and to get them to think about things in a different way. Because if you just send specs in, they go, what? There's no blueprint or drawing they can go off of. But we made them come out. It's like, oh no, we're throwing a party so you'll come out. And we would throw a party at a customer's house just to get our suppliers out there. And then we talk about, here's why we think the industry is moving, and here's how you can help, here's what we'd like to see. A lot of this stuff, I think, long term, we'll talk about at the end, is I think manufacturers could get involved with really pushing the industry if they cared to. But they're not going to unless people like us demand it. They're going to do what they've always done because it's what, quote unquote, makes money. But if we can push them to do better liners, if we can push them to do different things, it's worthwhile. Now, to your point about whether they'll make the liner right or not, one thing that I had to do is I had to bake in enough money that if I effed up a liner, I could put another one in. If I was at a margin where I was making just enough money to get out of there to get to the next one, I never could do this. But if I could guarantee that I had enough money in it, that if I needed 3 liners to make it work, I would. Now, I never had to do that. The only time, the pool that we won the award for, they would not sell me the liner that I wanted. It was only available in Canada. They refused to bring it across the border for me. I'd used it for years. They refused. I put up enough of a stink. The customer was out of town. We put the liner in that you saw the picture of. I didn't like it. When the customer went out of town, I drained the pool and put the liner I wanted, and I was able to convince CAFCO to sell it to me again. And then what happened was they came back, the pool was different again because it was the right color. I don't think we have any pictures of that now.
There's a view
The reef.
right at back. We could not get.
We are currently the only people in the U.S. that still get reef because we made enough of a stink about it. But we had built the relationships right to the top with Mark Lavin at Latham that we're going to figure out because we think the industry deserves something more. More importantly, we think that the customer deserves more. Yes?
Have you noticed any water chemistry issues at all, like since integrating all this concrete?
The only thing you have to worry about is some of the calcification and the efflorescence in the concrete itself. Plan for that. Some of our early projects we have to go back and touch up occasionally. We've really worked through that, but water chemistry in terms of balancing and all that hasn't been an issue at all.
Any sealer product that's on your concrete emitting anything into the water?
No, because what we're doing, we're using such a high, on our final finish on a carve of our concrete, we're using such a high level of cement in it that we have had no, as long as you're sealing it on the underside and then putting the proper finish over the top, we haven't had any issue. And now we'll talk about what we're using now on them that makes it even better. But we've had no issues whatsoever. I wanted to mention too, though, I think what I predict the future is the next level of customer, as the millennials get old enough, and we know what millennials are all about, they're going to demand what they want. Expect what they want, not what you're willing to give them. We're in a generation still where, okay, what's available, we'll take that. Millennials aren't going to put up with that for many years. They're going to say, we value what we want, so we want it. We don't want a kind of sort of it, we want an it. We want that thing. And by us innovating and changing the way we think, we can get manufacturers, we can get other people involved in doing that. There's that waterfall completed. There's that pool completed. Here was another issue. The guy said, well, great, you just got started. I want a pizza oven because we love pizza. Okay, went to YouTube. How could we build a pizza oven? And that's what that is in the corner right there. It's very cool. So there's another one, just a waterfall. And again, how could we be different? And we did a painting in the waterfall.
So let's talk about, again, tell
How are we for
story.
time, too?
About 20.
None of us care, keep going.
Okay. As long as you weren't going, time to get out of here. All right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So a quick story in how to tell the story. The reason that we built this pool is because Al did a backflip. And I know in the hallway, I don't know if you're in here now, somebody saw me with the video camera and I'm pointing at Al saying, okay, I want you to go down to that trash can and then casually walk this way as if you're going into class, because we try to capture as much of that on video as we can. So when we put water in one of the other pools,
This one.
in this one, Al and Karen and I were there. The homeowners were out of town. Her sister was in on it. The sister-in-law kept saying, our sister, that the weather had been so bad, nothing was happening. They left to go on vacation, and it looked like a shambles. A week later, they got home, and there was water in the pool. So Al, Karen, and I had gone in the pool first, because that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, and we needed to see we never built a grotto this big with water in it. It was like, we got to see what this looks like with water in it.
We also, Karen does the tile on the slide, so we always make Karen go down the slide first, because she'll know how to make sure they're smooth for the future. So we were doing that, and Al happened to do a backflip, which we captured on a video, put on YouTube, buried 1 minute and 7 seconds into another, just one of our random YouTube videos. So this customer that we built the Zen pool for saw that video and said, I want to be able to do that with my kids. Can you build me a pool?
Now let's just talk about YouTube for a second then. We have this assumption, we live in this viral video world. Oh, you got to have 1 billion, bajillion views to make it worth anything. When this customer saw that video, there were 68 views on it. They wanted what they had. Do you think they could go anywhere and get that? No, but only 68 people had seen that video when this couple stumbled on it and said, we have to have that. As a matter of fact, they hadn't even bought the house yet. They were in the process of buying the house. They met me at a coffee shop and were nervous when I got there, thinking I was going to say, no, one won't build them a waterfall like that.
And the wife kept kicking the husband under the table.
Shh, don't say anything.
Around to make sure that they didn't say anything because they recognized that Al was a bit of an artist. So they treaded lightly so that Al would build for them too.
So part of that, since we're talking about this pool, why that green thing in there? Why that little painting? This customer was passionate about a particular artist. And this artist did paintings of this wolf that it's like the wolf symbolizes this forlorn, lost something or other, and he built this whole thing around it. Well, to surprise them, we domed over the top of it, and I painted in a really similar style the wolf, and then I added my take on it to give them a sense of that as being part of their experience, and then it was Live Zen.
Oh, one other thing too, just, side note. The turtles that you see on this waterfall are low voltage lights. And this customer, again, sometimes people can see only to the point that they can see. So this customer knew they wanted a pool by Al. They knew they wanted a waterfall that they could do this with. One of the things that we also add to our pool environments is the low voltage lighting. Not just the lights off the house or the uplighting on the trees, but usable light around the pool. And they weren't so sure they wanted that. So in Al's ever clever way, he put the turtles on the waterfall, knowing that they hadn't opted for the lighting package. And then they end up asking, so what about those turtles? And Al said, yeah, I was just trying something out. Those are just some lights. I had an idea, but you didn't do the lighting package, so I'm going to pull those out and we'll put something else there for you. So, of course, that didn't happen. And they gladly signed up for the lighting package, which in some of our videos, Steve Bose is his name, he's on a video saying, I was on the fence about the lighting, and that is the absolute #1 best choice that they make for the pool, aside from everything else that they did.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to help people see what it is they want. I just had to do that this year, as a matter of fact. We did this cool pool, and there's no pictures of it, I don't think I brought, of a boat. So the boat is the seating area. It's down in the water, so it's like you're sitting in a boat, but that's all just seats. And originally we were going to do it out of a full fiberglass hull and put it in there. And she said, no, I want it out of concrete. So we built this boat out of concrete. It's very cool. We stripped all the parts off of a real boat to use all the windows and other, all the rails and all that stuff. And so we did all that, but one thing they didn't think they wanted either was the lighting. Well, because this boat's off the end of the pool and it's kind of a sitting area, then the other little bit of patio there, I poured the patio like a dock, and we put light posts in. Carved these light posts up and had wires sticking out of the top of them. And they came, I was meeting with them on a Sunday afternoon just to kind of catch up, and they're like, what are those wires for? I said, well, I thought, maybe I would just mock up a light to show you what I was thinking these lights would look like, and I would think it'd be pretty cool. But I haven't gotten around to it, and I know you didn't pick the lighting package, so, it's no big deal. We'll just snip them off and cover them. And she goes, maybe not. Because she started to dream. She started to see we carved these posts so it looked like posts coming up on a dock, and then she was now picturing these cool, nautical-looking lights on them with rope, and I kind of explained why I had these cool lights, and I was going to wrap some rope around them, and I just told the story. And he looks over at me, he goes, she wants them, just put them. So it was a $10,000 decision just because I put a couple $2 pieces of wire sticking out of the top. They didn't know what they didn't know. They wouldn't possibly want to do without them now. If I went to take the lights away, they would scream bloody murder. Because the lights make these projects, they're pushing that. Normally, I know in our market what we do is we rely on the landscaper to do all that. Well, let him decorate it. If you have a landscaper decorating your pool, it's not saying much about the pool. If you can think, if you need the landscaping to make the yard great, I would hope that you push more for make the pool great and let them do minimal landscaping. That's kind of my philosophy. And most of the guys and gals, and I say guys, I'm sorry, I mean men and women, but most of them rely on someone else to do all of that. So then a landscaper comes in and sells this expensive landscaping package of a bunch of uplights under trees and path lighting up the walkway, but it's non-functional. It's not usable. You can't do anything with it. The only way you can use the backyard at night is turn on the floodlight. Well, that ruins the atmosphere. And that's why part of providing the whole package and how we could be unique and different was, how can we get people to think differently? And we've had to lead some of them. I've had to lead them on a little bit and go, oh yeah, we're going to take those turtles off of there. No, you're not. Yeah, we are. No, you're not. Okay, pay for them, and they do. But they don't know what they don't know.
Oh, one of the other questions that I'm just carrying in my head too is that question of, is a hybrid pool going to be less expensive? Or why would you build it like that? For cost is a common question. No, our hybrid pools cost a lot more than a vinyl liner pool or a gunite pool or a fiberglass pool would. So it's not cost savings. It's for having the best of both worlds.
It's lifestyle.
And then one of the other questions too, which because we put books together, we did bring a couple examples that you're welcome to look at afterwards, is when we started building the hybrid pools, we put the book together and we didn't label the pools as to what type they were. So if somebody had the book, Al had the ability to, they're saying, well, why hybrid, or why would I want vinyl? And he said, well, you look in that book and you tell me if you can tell the difference visually on what any of the pools are, and nobody could. So it took away one of the, potential consumer objections that might come up, because visually, if they're worried about keeping up with the neighbors, or, if there's a status symbol associated with different types of pools, well, if you can't tell the difference, then it takes that away.
And that was a big thing for sure. Yeah.
Challenges of winterizing these pools.
Treat it absolutely the same as you would close a vinyl liner pool. There's no anything that you're going to do different. Most of our pools have safety covers on them. Most of it we use Merlin. Merlin makes all their safety covers, and we use their system across the front with wire. We're building it all exactly the same as, and from a winterizing standpoint, it's exactly the same as anything else. We do charge more for it because for every item we add some. So here's the base for the pool, then we add the spa, then we add the, so we make sure that we're charging. If we're blowing out an in-floor cleaning system, we charge more for that. And so we want to make sure waterfall is an additional charge, in-floor is additional charge, spa is additional charge. So we've just made sure that we can plan for that. So we're going to be there a little bit longer. A few of them, you'll see a few, we haven't gotten crazy yet. A few of our crazy ones, you have to float in the pool to put that cover on because there's a massive wall there. There's no way that you can clip it on. Well, we just make sure that we charge a customer for that.
When you get creative, you can start using Sandy Map, which is take the hard cost, double it, and then maybe add a little extra, just so that everybody feels good if you get a call back to go back out there. So our pool closings on a hybrid pool, we started inching up that way, and then we decided if you're there as long as one pool closing, traditional, whether it's safety covered, teeny tiny pool or not, a hybrid pool will get 2 or 3 time slots worth of expense, no matter how long we're there, because our guys and girls get good and they know how to do it quickly, but it's that specialized knowledge. So as you get more creative and start adding some of these elements, any traditional math of how you would do a cost-based approach to billing needs to change, because you'll have a whole lot more fun with it.
So we did that both on the construction end, but then on the service end as well. When we're building this, we're building a one-of-a-kind piece for them, and they want to protect it. They can call every company that does pool service that they want, but what are the likelihoods that they will? Not at all. Hasn't happened yet. But what happens too then is they're buying our expertise now in terms of how we're going to close that, and it protects our market. And we very much charge sometimes 2 and 3 times what an average closing would be to close one of our projects. Not all of them. Most of it's comparable, but when you get into some of the crazy complex ones, you have to plan for it. And again, if our guys could go do 2 or 3 closings in the same amount of time, doesn't it make sense to charge more for that one? But you can't be afraid to charge for that. People go, oh. I had a customer just the other day go, it was, and I don't even remember the number when I was, I'm like, yeah, Joe, that's what it cost. You want to know why? Because you need us to do it, because you're the only ones that are going to protect your investment. You've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you really want to try to save $200, $300, $500? Doesn't make any sense. So this was one of those projects where, the next vote, that's why I clicked back, was one of those things where I did one of those oops scratch heads. How am I going to put this liner in? And again, I won't make that mistake again.
We'll get into better pictures as well, but notice our liner crew. Seriously, this is the amount of people that put that liner in. And technically, had they not had to sit on that to make sure Al didn't fall in the pool,
I could have done it myself. Well, that's the other beauty. The challenge with that pool in particular was because there was no place that we could bend over to be able to snap it in. I had to do it from under the liner and across. We learned a technique to do that, and that's worked really well. The most complicated liners are pretty easy to do today. And if you ever came to our market and you bid on replacing a liner, I'm not here anymore, any one of you, if you're proficient at liners, could figure out how to do it. That one that I was tied underneath, the rock underneath the slide, the first one, that would be a pain. But the rest of them, you just have to think through it. And I always tell customers that someday I'm not going to be here. But don't pick the cheapest guy to put a new liner in for you. Pick someone that's proficient at it, and they will absolutely figure out. Because we're not doing anything, this isn't proprietary stuff that only we know how to do. This is using the exact same technology that everyone else uses. We're just using it in a little different way. So here's just another example of, that's the sun shelf. There's another, a little more simple project, but same thing, just kind of creating that elegant look. Sun shelf, steps are all shot out of concrete. Vinyl liner pool. Here was another one, a rectangle they wanted auto cover. So at the far end, we have 3/4 of the pool is steel, and then that end whole unit that became the sun shelf was shot in concrete, and then we have a seat on this end. You can see the seat right here. We did that just with steel. We could have just shot that out of concrete, but we did that with steel panels and filled it, and then put a liner over it. This was a crazy, weird waterfall. The customer originally, we were supposed to do a grotto cave, so it wouldn't have been quite like this. Well, right before we start the project, she says, oh, I'm a little worried if they have a special needs child. I'm a little worried about it if he's in the water and in the cave. Is there any way you can do a cave in the waterfall above water level? So this is all a cave underneath. So the idea was, how can we build this structure in this flat yard and not, I mean, it looks like an alien landed in the backyard, but it served her need was, there's a door right here, and this whole thing underneath is play space for the kids. So you can see it right there, and then there's a window. Here's an example just talking about, here's your raw gunite, here's your steel. True tile. Tile comes to here. True tile extends across the concrete, and then we blend those together, because if you stop the true tile here, your tile would have to come across the steel, and we're not going to see step strip down here. We're going to step strip down here. So again, you just kind of have to think through each of the pieces. And what we did with true tile, I'll touch on that again, is love the idea, love the system, love how it works. Didn't like their implementation, didn't like how they were doing it. Their videos, if you ever watch their videos, just don't give you the right enough. And we took their product and their what they do, and we built it our own way. How could we make it work better for us? How can we make the skimmers merge better? Anywhere possible that we can put a skimmer now, we put it in the concrete section. But if we can't, we rebuilt their system to make it work in vinyl. And again, it just takes a little bit of thought process to get to that.
A note about True Tile, knowing that we were coming up to do this program, and the fact that in the States, nobody new has been able to purchase True Tile, because I believe they had builders that were trying to use it who were underqualified, and they had issues.
Had all kinds of issues,
So before coming, I emailed Mark Laban with Latham, and I said, here's what we're doing. We're going to teach this seminar about the products. We'll be talking about True Tile quite a bit. I'd like to have an educated response for people who might want to learn. And it could include, we start training people, and or we work with them on how to do better training. So we are working on a solution for that. So if anybody thinks they might end up being interested in it, we'll have some solutions for that. For one thing, if you do start to use True Tile as well, other builders have tried to use it with smaller tiles. We always recommend using a true 6x6. And then, like Al said, there's modifications where we'll either cut off the top or do different things to make sure that it holds water well.
So this was an example of, we modified their system so that if you notice, the True Tile comes through to the pool, to the skimmer, just barely up from the bottom of the skimmer plate, face plate. And so we had to modify that a little bit to make it work, but once we did, their system, you had to put there's a plate that went on, and then you put your skimmer face plate over that, and it stuck out this far, and it didn't make any sense. But some engineer somewhere was designing this with no practical application as to how to, I think, and we just kind of had to think about where everything lined up, and the net result, I think, is the skimmer kind of fades right into the tile. Again, same thing. We have True Tile with a bench seat on the end.
So, good news, you have about 7 minutes.
Okay, let's go fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, just some more examples of, now this was pebble finish over here, vinyl. Once you put them together, they work pretty well.
Something really
Yes.
about here too, when you're going quickly, is Al Awis pre-installs the step kits, numbers and labels where they go, which direction, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that when it's liner day, you're already prepped and ready to go. You take it off, you screw the liner in, and you know exactly where all the pieces are supposed to fit.
What she's talking about right there, there's an 8 and an up. So I start at one side, one through whatever, and then I make an arrow so you don't know which end is which end. That allows us to know, because a lot of times when if you're using a normal fiberglass step, they're all pre-designed and cut for you and you know where they go. But in this case, you might have one that's this long, one that's this long, and you got to just be able to orient them and figure them out. So we make sure that we plan for that. There's that one with the waterfall on the end. That had an automatic cover on it.
Oh, and that was an example of the surround lighting as well, just for the sake of it. Functional, usable light makes that yard amazing.
It's amazing when you bring the lights up on the fence post and you get them up about this high and you shine light down, the backyard becomes very functional. So here was another project. This one got a little bit crazier. We're dealing with some serious elevation. So we're putting a grotto right here. The spa literally sits right up here, and the grotto is almost underneath the spa. So we're quite a ways down. This one, we did the same thing. We shot the walls because the grade fell off so much on this end, we needed our walls to be taller. And we could have put footings in and then built our walls up, but instead we shot them. And then that whole wall we had to pump and fill in lifts, which prompted us to buy a shotcrete pump. We bought a Mako pump that was really designed for grouting block, and we converted it. It can be used for shotcrete with a few modifications. That's what we did, and so we do a lot of our own pumping today and shooting with, well, Karen's one of the key people, 52-year-old woman on the crew. But this will give you a sense of how things grow up. Now here's the grotto. The other advantage of doing it this way with shooting these walls is we're able to keep the pool. And that's, versus in a concrete pool, you'd shoot the whole thing up. And if we did this out of a gunite pool, we would have had to dig the entire deep end of the pool, 9.5 feet deep, and then figure out how to scaffold up to work in this area. What we did instead was we shot the perimeter walls, left the end open, built the whole structure, then dug the pool out. So we were able to finish all that massive wall and then dig the pool out, hard bottom the pool, and we shot the end wall at the end, which ended up being a swim-up bar. So see, if we had to do all of this and that pool was 9.5 feet deep, that would have been virtually impossible for our crew. So being able to dig the pool out later allowed us to do that. And then the beauty is we dug the pool, threw it right over the walls, and used it as backfill. One of our concrete days. You notice who's working there? Girls. You know why? Millennial girls want to work a lot more than an awful lot of these young boys do today. And I'm talking late millennials, not early millennials. Early millennials figured out how to work. Later ones, it's pretty tough. But I can tell you what, you can get some girls to work, and these guys work their asses off.
So this, just something to note as well, if you think that your crew needs special skills or training, no, they need a good leader. Because our crew consists of this and
a couple others.
A main service guy and a couple other helpers that come in and out, but the majority of this pool this summer was built on the backs of the people in this picture.
Yeah. Not being this summers ago, but of that summer she's talking about,
and
that was a big part of the crew.
As well, everything went up and down a super, super steep hill in wheelbarrows by hand.
Yeah, there was an 80-foot drop from the house to the lake. The pool was sitting right in the middle. So everything had to come down a hill and then down another 40 feet to the pool area.
The other thing too, when you have good leadership, is people think it's normal to do this kind of stuff. One of the girls in that picture is Kaylee, my daughter, and I showed up on the Zen pool one day when she was screwing into
This is her daughter.
The sun ledge to get it ready for liner day, and I just had the thought, knowing about my experience in the pool world, is she doesn't know to think this is not normal. So the more creative you get and the more that you're able to train people in exactly the way that they need to do it, that becomes their normal and they don't realize that it might be anything out of the ordinary.
So here's that pool. There's the grotto. It's sort of these people loved Goonies, the movie The Goonies, and it's a Goonies theme. So inside it's kind of a pirate theme. There's a few pictures in there. That's the spa up there. Remember how far down I was standing in that original picture? Our spa's sitting on top. There it is. Outside of the spa, we carve like a barrel. Here's where doing really good measuring comes into place. In a project like this, A, B, C, D, and E sometimes, I'm sorry, but we can't point and click with a lot of the programs yet for this. When you get to this, it takes a little effort. What's it take us? A half an hour more, maybe? So it's not like, oh, there's so much more work. Yeah, it's a pain in the neck. I'm standing on a ladder and I'm measuring out, but really it took us a half an hour more to measure that pool than it normally would. We have an A, B, and C in that particular case. I think we had a D on the other side to add to get some of those dimensions.
And this pool had no revisions. Tony knows when our liner stuff goes across that he needs to take a peek at it, and typically first time.
Yep. Yeah, we've had no problems. But we're making sure we're giving them accurate information. We're giving them what they need. So let's kind of go toward wrap up. Here's what happened. Anyone heard of EcoFinish? They'll be doing displays. I think they're doing some stuff outside tomorrow. Hopefully they can. Hopefully the weather's good. We had this whole idea, gunite pool, vinyl light, bring them together. Then we had the final issue with us before I think we've gotten to perfection almost is now we have a vinyl liner pool and we have a concrete surface for the sun shelf, for the grottos, for the spas. There's got to be something better. Well, we started dealing with EcoFinish when they first came on the market, and we went to see their facility in Pennsylvania, and it's a powder-coated plastic finish. It was brought out. Their market was recoating gunite pools and recoating fiberglass pools. It's a really interesting product. There's someone else, Residine or someone else. I mean, we happen to like and use EcoFinish. Don't know enough. I think Residine is another one that does something. I think there's someone else here that also has that type of product. I don't know how theirs works. But at first I was skeptical about EcoFinish, just worried and wondering about it. But we finally decided that our pools deserved it. We needed it. The customer doesn't pay more for it. They don't know more for it. We had to spend the money to get the equipment and learn how to do it.
We don't tell them they're getting it.
They don't know they're going to get it, but now they get a plastic finish over their sun shelves and their spas as well. And that really, to answer the question about water chemistry, really brought it back around, as well as now we're pretty much sealed up from concrete everywhere in the pool. And what it is, if you haven't learned anything about it yet, is it's a really finely ground up powder that's pumped through a center channel. There's a bunch of series of air that protects it, and then propane flame around the outside. And as it comes out of the nozzle, the propane starts heating it up, and by the time it hits the surface, it flashes and melts and gives you a finished surface. This was the end of the product where I was saying we left the end open. The other end, after we built that whole spa and the raised wall and all of that, this was the final wall we shot. That then we also did we did some benches there. So there's the liner in that pool, and that's as much as we had to zip screw in. The rest of it all is just clipped in with True Tile. Just your typical day in the pool, in the vinyl liner pool business, I know. It gets a little goofy, but they're pretty darn cool when you're all said and done. You just got to work your way through the process. So here it is being filled. Here's inside the cave. I don't know what exactly happened to those. We did some cool stuff with some lighting. We made like a custom treasure chest, and I made these acrylic things with little LED lights, different colors, so that the kids could go in and open the treasure chest, and there's some lighting in it. Things like swords. You pull the sword out and it hits the wall, so it'll never come out of the scabbard, but they can play and pretend. Use portholes. Inside the porthole, there's a little display in there with a little treasure chest and some lighting. Here goes to the issue of you get some efflorescence and things in that initial as that concrete's curing, and that's what this is. Jesse is going across to work on and re-clean that up. But we worked really hard, and the final pictures of this, it matches really well to the natural stone.